It's time to share a whiskey with your mates, your Caskmates. Welcome to Dram Fine Whiskey. My name is Matt, and today I'm talking to you about the stout finished Caskmates whiskey from Jameson. Now, if you're not subscribed yet, you know what you need to do. Just scroll down, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. I put out a new whiskey review every Wednesday, and I put out a new cocktail recipe every Friday. So hit that subscribe button and stay in the know. This is actually the latest in a collaboration series Jameson have been doing with Irish craft beer producers. Originally, this was a limited edition whiskey where they had taken some stout barrels from Franciscan Well, which is a very small craft beer distillery, and they'd aged or finished Jameson whiskey in those casks that had held Franciscan Well stout. However, this was so successful and so well received, I think Jameson have started sourcing stout barrels from other breweries. In fact, the back of the bottle actually just says stout seasoned barrels, so it may be that a stout was introduced to some barrels for a very short amount of time to give those flavours, to give those notes to the wood, and then Jameson have put their whiskey in it. If you look at the back of the IPA edition Caskmates or the recent collaborations on their Crested series, they prominently and proudly say they were finished in 8 degrees brewing beer barrels. This one doesn't name drop a single brewery, so that's why I think they've been sourcing from different locations. That said though, it is a great little whiskey and is rapidly gaining a lot of appreciation abroad as something that is a little different from the standard Jameson and a little better. So let's get into the nose. Okay, it's kind of round and creamy. There's some kind of chocolate notes in there. It's a little bit of a kind of coffee. If you think of like an espresso, that kind of sharp, almost bitter, but kind of dense coffee notes. Those kind of same dark chocolate, kind of dense chocolatey notes coming through. It's not like a milk chocolate. It's not like a latte. It's like dark chocolate, like espresso. Those are the kind of notes you get from a stout because the malt in a stout has been very highly cooked, so it is quite dark, so you get those dark notes coming through here. It's actually, if you think of a chocolate truffle, like a coffee chocolate truffle, that's the kind of note I'm getting here. It's a really rich, dense chocolate, that really rich, dense coffee note coming through. That's the kind of note I'm picking up on the palate. On top of that standard kind of Jameson sweetness, a little bit of sherry influence because a small amount of Jameson is aged in sherry. You've got a bit of pot still peppery spiciness coming through. It's mostly grain whiskey, but there's a bit of pot still coming through there, so it's a little bit rounder, a little bit spicier, a little bit creamier with those chocolate notes, with those coffee notes coming through as well. There's also maybe a little bit of kind of butterscotch or toffee sweetness coming in at the end, kind of once you get past those upfront notes, but those are kind of the main notes I'm getting on the nose. So I think it's time to go in for the palate. Okay, it's much the same as in the nose. There's a little bit more spiciness that comes through, that kind of typical Jameson spiciness that comes through, but really it's rounded out by all those chocolatey notes, by all those vanilla butterscotch notes, by all those coffee notes. Those kind of nice rounded notes are coming through much more than in like any other standard Jameson whiskey. So I'm going to go in again and see if I can find anything else. Now again, it's just those round, rich, kind of creamy notes coming through. The first sip was a little bit sharper, I think, than the second sip. Second sip I was able to appreciate more of those rounder, creamier, richer notes, but broadly speaking, it's the same as it is in the nose as it is in the palate. So let's go for the finish. Okay, on the finish, it fades quite quickly. Like, you are left with that typical kind of Jameson taste coming through on the finish, but those chocolatey notes, those coffee notes, those round rich notes, they do kind of fade. It leaves you with that typical pot still sherry influence, kind of slightly spicy, slightly kind of rich and dense and oily mouthfeel you get with a Jameson. Now that said, I find that the standard Jameson is actually quite a good whiskey for its price point. I think because Jameson is so popular, it's one of those whiskies that people kind of love to hate. I found that when I do blind tastings with friends, that Jameson typically outperforms other whiskies in its category. And if you introduce a Jameson into some more high-end whiskies in a blind tasting, some people actually will rate Jameson really highly. This blend though takes those sharper, slightly more unpleasant kind of grain alcohol notes you get in the standard Jameson, kind of rounds them out, makes it nicer, makes it easier to enjoy. Now it is much more distinctive because you know it's a stout finished whiskey because you've got that coffee, you've got that chocolate note in there, but it does round it out, it does make it a little bit more enjoyable than the standard Jameson blend. Like, if you've not tried this yet, I definitely encourage you to try it out. It's only a couple euro more expensive than the standard Jameson. So if you're going to restock your bar, if you're going for a bottle of Jameson, maybe just reach slightly to the side, get a bottle of Caskmates with the stout edition. It's really good, it's really enjoyable. It kind of adds things to the whiskey that weren't there before. It adds new dimensions, it makes it easier to enjoy, kind of adds a different dimension. So I'd say you should definitely try it out. So until next time, slán.